You're still breastfeeding your baby and you've just found out that you're pregnant again. Everyone has an opinion and everyone's probably telling you it's time to stop breastfeeding. But what does the science actually say? Welcome back, I'm Joanna. I'm a mum to two. I am currently breastfeeding two children. I breastfed through my second pregnancy and I still haven't weaned either of them off. I am making short videos on research-based academic papers, data across varying parenting topics. Today is breastfeeding. About 10 minutes ago it was home education. Literally whatever study I think is quite interesting, I'll talk about it. If you like that idea, please do hit like and subscribe. So let's talk about context. So breastfeeding during pregnancy is actually more common than you might think. Many mothers will continue nursing at least for part of their pregnancy and even beyond birth in what's known as tandem feeding. But is it safe? What does it actually do to your body, your milk and your new baby? Well, a major new meta-analysis published last year is PROSPERO-registered and follows PRISMA guidelines, which basically means that it meets the highest standards of this kind of research. And it pulled data from various studies across multiple databases to find answers to these questions. So, what are the concerns? And what is the research telling us? So the two things that people worry about most are miscarriage and preterm birth. The logic goes like this: you're breastfeeding, it triggers the release of oxytocin, which is the hormone behind the milk letdown reflex. Baby latches on, you get a rush of oxytocin and you start making milk. But oxytocin also triggers uterine contractions. So the fear is that when you're nursing while pregnant, you could trigger early labour or a miscarriage. It makes sense. This was a concern to me throughout my whole pregnancy. The research makes sense on paper, but the evidence is really reassuring. The 2025 meta-analysis found that breastfeeding during pregnancy did not significantly increase the risk of miscarriage, preterm labour or pregnancy complications. This lines up with early research as well, so it's not alone. A 2019 study in the Perspectives of Sexual and Reproductive Health found that while a handful of similar studies did show a correlation between breastfeeding and pregnancy and miscarriage risk, none reached statistical significance. Why not? Well, the uterus has natural safeguards. It's pretty insensitive to oxytocin in the first and second trimester of pregnancy, meaning that the amounts of oxytocin that are released while breastfeeding and nursing are unlikely to trigger any meaningful response in a healthy, low-risk pregnancy. Interestingly, experts on miscarriage are not those who see a credible link between breastfeeding and miscarriage. The same mild uterine contractions also occur during coitus, which most couples will continue throughout pregnancy without any concern. Low birth weight finding, let's talk about that. So the 2025 meta-analysis did flag one association that is worth mentioning, that breastfeeding during pregnancy did link with a higher incidence of low birth weight and slower fetal growth. However, researchers found that this effect varied significantly depending on what country the studies were being conducted in. The vast majority of low birth weight babies, around 95% of them, occur in low-income countries, where maternal malnutrition is already a major risk factor, independent of breastfeeding. Many of these studies in this meta-analysis did come from settings where the mother may have been nutritionally depleted already before adding the demands of pregnancy and breastfeeding simultaneously. For a well-nourished mother in a higher income country, the picture looks considerably different. The body is remarkable at adapting and prioritising the growth of baby. There's no strong evidence that breastfeeding during pregnancy meaningfully harms the growth of your fetus while a mother is eating well. The takeaway is not fear, it's awareness. If you're breastfeeding while pregnant, your nutritional needs are much higher than any other point in your life. Eating enough, staying hydrated, and keeping up on your iron and other nutrients isn't just good advice, it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And I can attest to this because I was anemic in my pregnancy. I actually blamed it on me being vegan, but I don't think that was what it was. I think I just wasn't eating well enough and eating the right kinds of foods. So can attest, make sure you eat loads and loads and loads if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, and eat well. What happens to your milk? Well, the composition of breast milk does shift during pregnancy. The 2025 meta-analysis found that the content of fat in your milk tends to decrease while protein and lactose levels remain broadly similar. Around 4 to 5 months in pregnancy, supply also typically drops and the milk gradually turns into colostrum, which is the milk that's designed for newborn babies. Most older children actually self-wean at this point, around 20 weeks, because they don't like the taste of colostrum. It doesn't taste the same as mature milk. But some also continue breastfeeding, and that's where tandem feeding comes in. I can attest, my 2-year-old and 7 months, there was no sign of him self-weaning, not at all. Parenting takeaways. So for a healthy, low-risk pregnancy, breastfeeding appears to be safe. The fears around miscarriage and preterm birth are not well supported by evidence at all, the evidence that we have. The low birth weight finding is real, but it's heavily tied to maternal nutrition, and it's most pronounced in under-resourced settings like lower income countries. If you're eating well and your pregnancy is pretty straightforward, the evidence suggests that you can continue nursing without significant concern. If you have a higher risk pregnancy or any other risk factors, talk to your midwife or a GP. Don't follow some random person on YouTube that's just reading out a study that she found online. Breastfeeding in pregnancy is one of those topics that can be pretty divisive and actually has very little guidance, and actually not that many people are very well informed. Hopefully this gives you something more solid to go on. I've linked all of the studies below so you can have a look for yourself. If you found this video useful, please do hit like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you for another one. I'll see you later.